place that wasn't on the map. I didn't believe in places that weren't on maps until the night we found the graveyard. Because up until that moment, I trusted that the world, no matter how cruel, still followed rules. Roads led somewhere, fences marked boundaries, and the dead stayed where records said they were buried. That confidence lasted right up until my phone lost signal, and the forest went silent in a way I'd never heard before. It started as a dare, the kind that feels harmless when you're young and bored. And certain nothing truly bad ever happens to people like you. Mason had heard about an old shortcut behind the quarry, a trail that supposedly cut an hour off the hike back to town. Ellie laughed when he mentioned it, but she followed anyway. I did too, mostly because I didn't want to be the only one who said no. The path narrowed fast, trees crowding in like they were listening. Our flashlights sliced through the dark, but the beams felt thin, swallowed almost instantly. I remember thinking it felt later than it was, like time had thickened, stretching every second longer than it should have. That was the first warning, though I didn't know it yet. After 10 minutes, the air changed. It smelled wrong. Wrong. Not rot exactly, but damp stone and cold earth, like a basement that had never seen light. Ellie asked if anyone else felt it, and when none of us answered, she went quiet. Silence has weight when fear settles in. You can feel it pressing against your ears. That's when we saw the fence. It was old iron, half buried, twisted inward instead of out, as if something had tried to claw its way inside rather than escape. No warning signs, no names, just a gate hanging open, gently rocking without wind. Mason joked that maybe we'd found a movie set, but his voice cracked at the end, betraying him. Inside, the ground dipped, and headstones emerged one by one, crooked and uneven. Too many. Far too many for a place none of us had ever heard of. The dates made my stomach drop. Some were recent, last year, 2 months ago. One didn't have a date at all, just a name scratched so deep it split the stone. I felt watched. Not the vague paranoia you get in the dark, but a focused attention, like eyes adjusting to you. My flashlight flickered, and when it steadied, I realized something worse. There were no leaves on the ground. The forest floor outside was thick with them, but inside the fence, the dirt was bare, smoothed flat, as if disturbed again and again. Like people still came here, or like something moved through regularly, dragging itself across the soil. Ellie whispered my name, and when I turned, she was staring at a grave near the center. My heart hammered before I even read it, because some instincts exist to warn you before your brain catches up. The name on the stone was Mason's, same last name, same middle initial, and the date beneath it was tomorrow. No one spoke. Even Mason didn't laugh this time. Somewhere deeper in the trees, something shifted, slow and deliberate, and that's when I understood the worst part. We hadn't found the graveyard. It had been waiting for us. Dissection, our names that shouldn't exist. Mason stepped back from the stone like it burned him, his breath coming fast, shallow, loud enough that I was afraid whatever was listening could hear it too. He kept saying it wasn't funny, not funny at all, even though none of us had laughed, and that made it worse because it meant he understood exactly how wrong it was. Ekin? Ellie grabbed my arm hard enough to hurt and pointed beyond the grave, deeper into the fenced clearing. More stones stood there, arranged in uneven rows, some freshly disturbed, the dirt still dark and loose. My light shook as I swept across them, and every name I caught looked ordinary, painfully normal, like they belonged to people who had once bought groceries and complained about work and expected to wake up the next morning. I wanted to leave. The urge was so strong it felt physical, like my body was already turning away without permission. But Mason took a step forward instead, drawn by something I couldn't see, and when he did, the forest responded, not with sound, but with absence. The crickets stopped. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. Do you hear that?" he asked. None of us answered, because there was nothing to hear, and that nothing pressed against my skull harder than any scream could have. I noticed then that some of the headstones were wrong, not broken or vandalized, but unfinished. Blank slabs with fresh tool marks, waiting. One of them stood slightly apart, closer to the gate, and without knowing why, I knew it was meant for one of us. My mouth went dry as I realized the spacing wasn't random. It was deliberate, planned. Ellie whispered that we needed to mark the trail, drop something so we could find our way back. But when she reached into her pocket, her phone slipped from her fingers and hit the ground with a dull thud. The screen lit up for half a second, and in that brief glow, I saw footprints in the dirt that didn't match any of ours. Again, they were barefoot, long, dragged. Mason saw them too. His face drained of color, and he finally turned toward the gate. "We're leaving," he said, trying to sound in control, trying to sound alive. He took 2 steps, then froze. The gate was closed, not rusted shut, not blocked, just closed, the latch resting neatly in place like someone had done it gently, carefully, while we were busy staring at graves with our names on them. I felt a pressure behind my eyes, the kind that comes right before panic breaks loose. And that's when the whispering started. Okay, not from the forest, but from the ground itself, a low, overlapping murmur, like dozens of voices trying to remember how words worked. The nearest headstone began to tremble, soil shifting at its base, and something underneath knocked once, softly, patiently. Sedja, sand the grave that took him. I don't remember deciding to run, only the moment my body finally obeyed the fear screaming inside it. Ellie pulled me toward the gate, rattling it hard enough to make the metal shriek, and that sound broke whatever fragile balance the clearing had been holding. The whispering rose instantly, no longer patient, no longer quiet, swelling into something hungry that pressed in from every direction. Mason shouted my name, but his voice sounded wrong, stretched thin, like it had to travel too far to reach me. I turned and saw him standing beside one of the blank stones, staring straight down at it as if it were staring back. His flashlight had rolled away, leaving his face lit only by moonlight, and that's when I saw the dirt at his feet moving. Not bursting, not erupting, just shifting, slow and deliberate, as if whatever was underneath was taking its time. Ellie screamed for him to move. I screamed too. But Mason didn't react. He lowered himself to his knees without breaking eye contact with the stone, his expression calm in a way that felt rehearsed, practiced, like the fear had already been removed from him. I remember this place," he said quietly. "I wasn't supposed to, but I do." The ground beneath him caved in. Hands pushed through the soil, gray and swollen, fingers bending the wrong way as they clawed for air. Mason didn't fight when they grabbed him. He didn't even flinch. He let them pull him down, inch by inch, dirt filling his mouth, his eyes still fixed on the headstone above him, as if it were the only thing that mattered. Then he was gone. The earth smoothed itself over, neat and undisturbed, like he had never been there at all. The gate flew open behind us with a violent clang, and that was enough. Ellie dragged me through without looking back, and we ran, branches tearing at our clothes, roots catching our feet, the forest suddenly alive with sound again. Too loud, too fast, like it was trying to drown out what we'd seen. I saw happenings. I don't know how long we ran. Time didn't behave right after that. When we finally stopped, gasping, bent over in the dirt, the clearing was gone. No fence, no path. Just trees, endless and indifferent. Ellie kept asking where Mason was over and over, her voice breaking more each time. I didn't answer. I was staring at my hands, shaking so hard I could barely keep them in front of me, because there was dirt under my nails that hadn't been there before. We found our way back to the car just before dawn. Neither of us spoke the entire drive. When we reached town, the relief should have been overwhelming, but it wasn't. Something followed us out of those woods, not physically, not visibly, but it came with us all the same. That night, I dreamed of rows of stones stretching farther than I could see, of blank markers waiting patiently, of a space already cleared, already measured. When I woke up, there was dirt on my bedroom floor. Didn't tell anyone about the dirt. I swept it into the trash before Ellie woke up, washed my hands until the skin burned, and tried to convince myself it was just a nightmare bleeding into reality. That explanation almost worked until my phone buzzed mid-morning with a message from a number I didn't recognize. Do you remember where you stood? Do you remember where you stood? There was no name attached, no context. Just that question sitting on my screen like it had weight. I blocked the number. By noon, another message came through from a different one. It says your name now. I tried calling Ellie. It rang until voicemail. I tried again. Same result. The longer I stared at my phone, the more certain I became that silence was deliberate, like something was giving me time to think before it spoke again. I went to the local library after work, telling myself I just needed answers. Any answers, even boring ones. The librarian was an older woman with tired eyes who looked relieved to see a real person. When I asked about old cemeteries or unmarked burial grounds near the state forest, her fingers froze over the keyboard. We don't have records like that, she said too quickly. I told her about the fence, the stones. The dates that didn't make sense. Her expression tightened. She leaned closer and lowered her voice. There was a settlement there once, long before the park existed. People went missing. Families claimed their relatives were still around, still walking, still talking. The town called it grief. Then strangers started recognizing people who'd been dead for years. I asked what happened to them. They stopped leaving, she said. Those who remember themselves did. The others stayed that night. I finally heard from Ellie. She didn't call. She sent a single photo. It was her bedroom floor. Dirt scattered in a careful oval. In the center sat a small, flat stone, no writing on it at all. She texted right after. It knows where I sleep. I drove to her apartment without thinking. Every streetlight felt like a countdown. When I reached her building, her door was unlocked. Inside, the air smelled damp, like turned soil. The stone was gone. So was Ellie. In her bedroom, I found her laptop open. On the screen was a map of the forest, zoomed in tight. A red pin marked the clearing. Next to it, another pin blinked slowly, miles away. My address. My phone vibrated in my hand. You came back wrong. And the whisper came from behind me, not loud, not rushed, just close enough that I felt breath on my ear. I didn't turn around. I already knew what I'd see. Not Ellie, not Mason. Something wearing the idea of them, patient and familiar, and waiting for me to remember why I belonged there. And the lights went out. I don't remember leaving the apartment. I remember waking up in my bed with my shoes still on, dirt under my nails, again, and a headache that felt like pressure, like the inside of my skull was being measured. On my nightstand sat a small, flat stone, blank. I understood then that the graveyard wasn't hidden to protect us. It was hidden to protect itself. It didn't want witnesses, only continuity. It wanted replacements, lives that could be folded quietly into its rows. The longer you carried its memory, the deeper its claim grew, until distance stopped mattering and night began to feel like an invitation. Sleep no longer felt safe because every dream ended with me standing in that clearing, waiting what the ground keeps. I keep the stone in a drawer now, wrapped in a shirt I don't wear anymore. I've tried throwing it away twice. Once it was back by morning, resting on my sink like it had never left. The second time, the trash bag split open on my stairs, dirt spilling out even though I hadn't put any inside. I stopped trying after that. Some nights I hear footsteps outside my bedroom door. They don't pace anymore. They just stop there, patient, respectful, like whatever's standing there knows I'll come eventually. I don't open the door. I lie still and count my breaths and tell myself that remembering isn't the same as returning. Oh, Ellie's apartment is empty now. The landlord says she skipped town. Mason's family put up flyers for a while, then took them down. No bodies were found, no answers given. People move on faster than you expect when there's nothing concrete to hold on to. I went back to the library once more. The old woman wasn't there. Her desk was clean, like she'd never worked there at all. When I asked about her, the younger librarian frowned and told me the position had been vacant for years. I don't go near the forest anymore. I don't need to. Sometimes I wake up with the smell of damp earth in my nose, with dirt under my nails and a soreness in my legs, like I've been walking all night. The stone feels heavier each time I touch it, warmer, almost expectant. I know what happens next. I can feel the space waiting, measured and ready, a place where a name isn't necessary, where a memory is enough. If you ever find a fenced clearing where the dates don't make sense and the stones are blank, don't step inside. Don't read them. Don't let the quiet fool you, because once it learns your shape, it doesn't forget. Okay? I'm writing this because stories are the only warning I have left. Not maps, not signs, not fences. Stories linger. They slip under doors. They make you hesitate. If you're reading this late at night and you feel watched, close the window. Turn on a light. Call someone. Don't follow curiosity into places that feel older than they should. Some ground remembers feet it never released, and some silence is an invitation, pretending to be peace. If the earth ever feels too welcoming, walk away and don't look back. It already knows your name. And if you hear someone call you from where no one should be, let it go unanswered. Voices fade. Consequences don't. Trust the fear that tells you to stay put, because it might be the last honest thing you feel. Listen to it.